Yeah. All right. So from the previous session, if anyone has queries, please mention it or mention the question in the chat box. Otherwise, I will start with the second topic, that is stakeholders analysis today. If anyone has any sort of questions, or you have gone through the PowerPoint presentation that was shared with you yesterday, so in case you have any sort of question, please, you're most welcome to ask your query. Okay, I am not able to see any questions, so I think I should start with the new topic or the second topic from the module 1. Okay, I hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Yes, I can see it. I can see
All
it.
right.
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. Now, in yesterday's class, we discussed about the various aspects of project management. That is, what is project management? What all are the components of project management? And what do we analyze when we are conducting a particular project? Now, one of the important member, or to say one of the important component, or maybe a person you can say, into a project is the stakeholder. Now, who is the stakeholder? A stakeholder is a person who has his vested interest into your business. Like if I own some 30% or 40% stake into any of the concerns, I would definitely have interest into what the or how the company is performing and what are the decisions that is the company making. Why? Because I have some financial interests that are going to be there. Now, here, as you can see onto the graph, how to manage a stakeholder. So on one side, I'm showing
Voice. It's not clear.
hello. Hello, is it fine now?
Hello, voice. This side is not clear. Voice.
It's fine. It's fine.
There might be some network issue. Maybe you can just leave and rejoin the meeting again.
You are clear.
might
You are
be
clear
some.
on my side. You are clear on my side. So maybe if he logs out and logs in, maybe he might be having a problem
Yeah,
with his
that is
device.
what I am conveying. As you can
This
see
side I
on,
can't hear anything.
I'm just saying, if you can please log out once
You're
and then
clear.
log in, because others are able to listen to what I'm saying.
A mobile phone, you may need to enable the speaker as an output method or use earphones. Thank you.
All right. So, okay, on one side of this particular diagram, you can see it's the level of commitment, and on the other side, you can see the time. Now, when we are at the lowest level, that is, I have just contacted a particular person. So at that particular stage, the level of commitment is also low and the time spent is also low. Why so? Because I have just contacted that person. When I slowly moved ahead, wherein I have spent some time with that particular person who is the stakeholder, who has invested some money in him, in the project, and this person has heard and understood about the particular project. There we can see some increment in the level of commitment. Thereafter, when he gains understanding after spending more time, their level of commitment again increases. Now, the fourth thing that comes is the engagement. Engagement means the person wants to know more and more about the project. What is going on into the project and what can next be done into the project to make it more beneficial for the target audiences. So, at the stage of engagement, the stakeholder has spent a lot of time with the concern and his level of commitment has increased. Now, you can also see, if I compare the amount of time spent and the level of commitment that has been there, there is a difference. Level of commitment is increasing at a very slow rate, whereas the time spent is more. But as and when we reach out to the stage of acceptance, commitment and internationalization, there we are able to see there is increase in the level of commitment as an increasing rate. Why? Because the stakeholder has now started accepting, he has developed the commitment onto the work because the project has been implemented. And internalization means that internally some innovations, some new ideas, certain things are coming back to back into their hand, which are enhancing their business day to day. So when a person has invested the money into a particular business, they expect this way and the graph goes up slowly and steadily. So until the engagement stage, we can see that the level of commitment is increasing but at a very decreasing rate. Okay, but after that, after the engagement stage, we can see that the level of commitment has increased at a increasing rate. Next, now what is a stakeholder management? It is basically what I have told you in the graph, explained you through the graphs. Why do we need stakeholders is to maintain relationship, to influence them in order to achieve our objective. Say for example, amongst you people, we start certain sort of business where I take you as a stakeholder to put some money into my business. Now, I need to submit a proposal onto you and show you what all are the benefits that you are going to attain if you invest some money into my business. Okay, so whosoever thinks that yes, investing into her business is a very lucrative opportunity for me and sees some or looks in forward from some innovative options, because as you can see in the world today that there are many things that are repetitive in nature. There are many things that are similar. Like we cannot even find a single differentiating point into them. So if there is some innovation, some unique feature, which we call in marketing terms as a unique selling proposition, so that will win the stakeholders' mind the most. Okay. So if we go on defining the stakeholder, is there somebody who's trying to say something? Okay. A stakeholder is a person or a group of people who have their interest and their interest is impacted by an objective. Now, objective can hit a person positively or negatively. Positive, if it is impacting him positively, so he tries to get into that particular thing. But if it is negative, look, as we can see, every aspect has its own positives and negatives. So we cannot change those positives and negatives, because certain people go ahead with the particular thing with a negative thought in mind, might be this can turn out to be a failure. because there are lots and lots of competitors in the world. Okay, so that can be a negative point. But if at a certain given point of time, the negative can be converted into positive, that will be more in the interest of the organization. Now, the stakeholder management is a two-way communication, basically to build or sustain appropriate levels of commitment and identify and mitigate resistance. Now, when I'm talking about to build and sustain appropriate level of commitment of the objective, so here the sole objective of the business comes into picture, that whether we are sticking to the sole objective or not. And amongst both the parties, that is the stakeholder and the individual who are tying up together, there should not be any resistance, there should not be any negativity amongst those people. Now, who are the most important stakeholders? Those who analyze you most critically. The one who find mistakes in your project, the one who finds errors into the work done is the most important stakeholder. Why? Because that person is critically analyzing your work, is identifying what is that particular thing that can go wrong. That person can stop you from achieving a particular objective also which you have set for yourself, because that person might be able to see that you are going onto a wrong path. Now, the business network. Now, when I talk about stakeholder management, so as you can see this in the center, the stakeholder management, that is keeping all the stakeholders on board. So in the lower half, we can see the various partners, account management, users, budget owners. Okay. These all are important people who can become competitive stakeholders into the organization. Now, in order to get the stakeholders, we can run the campaigns, can capture, we can go for bidding, we can go out for the project delivery, which is ideally whole solely for a particular objective. So now we got to know that who all can become the stakeholders in any organization. We can go for a partnering thing. We can go in for making a person as a stakeholder who can manage the accounts or the finances of the concern. Maybe the users can also become the stakeholders. As you can see, when there are IPOs that are launched, when the public offerings are there for the various shares. So when I am owning an equity share, I do have the right to vote into the general body meeting out there. Then the budget owners are there. Now these things, that is how do I become a stakeholder into the company? Majorly, it happens through the bidding system. Other methods can be the campaign method, the capture method, the product delivery method. That is how best you can impress a person to get on board with you. This is how the business network of the stakeholder management works. Now the question comes, when should I go for stakeholder management? This particular period can be any time when I have initiated with the idea, or I can go in between also. But this should be a predefined approach, because only single-handedly a particular thing or a particular project cannot be completed. We need multiple hands together. So when I'm talking about the process of stakeholder manager, or when it should be done, when once I have decided what is going to be my primary objective. Look, secondary objectives are something which come along with the primary objectives. So when my primary objective is achieved, I get to know whether I'll be needing a person who can own equitable stakes along with me can monitor the various activities, can help me or can give me a lending hand to support or deal with any sort of services, and who can bear the benefits also and losses also, whatever is the situation. So stakeholder does have certain set of roles and responsibility. We cannot treat the stakeholder as a dormant partner. Stakeholder is never a dormant partner. Now, now the thing comes is, or what is very much important to understand, or there might be these questions must have been in your mind over these 4-5 slides, that why I need a stakeholder. So as already told to you, for the success, for certain set of things, in order to grab, what is the need of having celebrity endorsement when an advertisement is there? The product is sufficient enough. But I need a celebrity endorsement because people follow that particular person. People look into, people idealize that person. So this is what stakeholder can also do for a particular project. If that kind of a person is there involved with me, who has his unique identity into the market. So what is vital here to understand is who all are the interested parties into my project. What is their reaction to the objective? How well, how good, how bad they feel about the objective. Look, they can critically expedite that particular aspect also, and they can give you insights also that what can you rectify into your project. What is the role within the interested community? Now, we also need to identify if the similar stakeholder is there into any of the similar competitive organization also. That person we need to avoid, because that person can be harmful to us. Then what are the current and future levels of commitment? For how long that particular person will stay with me? What are the level of power and influence do they have? Or who or what influences the stakeholders? So I'll just quickly show you the graph again. Until engagement stage, we understand all these aspects, that how good or how bad a particular stakeholder is. But post that, we have once when understood, then we need to trust that person alongside keeping an eye as to that the commitment doesn't fails. Moving ahead. Stakeholder management process. It's a process of 4 stages. First is to identify, then to assess, then to plan, and then to act. Identify means finding out who is the best person who can work alongside or who has a similar interest that is of mine and can work along without any influences or without any further distractions. Then assess. Once I have identified the person, I need to assess. It's similar like when a recruitment happens. Whenever a recruitment happens, for a few days or maybe a month or so, the employer does analyzes or assesses that whether that the employee is performing well or not, whether that particular employee is working in the interest of the company or not. And then thereafter they render certain set of responsibilities that that particular person can be trusted upon, and we can actually ask for certain outputs or certain suggestions from that particular person. So that particular things comes into the planning stage, that is record the required level of engagement. Now after assessing that particular person, what kind of level of engagement do I need with that particular person? Whether I need a low engagement level, whether I need a higher level of engagement, how much or how frequently that person should be involved in decision making process. And finally, act. engage with the stakeholder as planned, and regularly review and update the stakeholder management plan. So here we have understood what is or how to identify the stakeholder. Okay, so here we have 4 I's, that is impact, involvement, influence and informed. So the stakeholders can be individual whom or who have an impact about our business or project, who can be involved or whose involvement is essential for the success of the business, who can influence the outcome of the business, that is because of them being there, their knowledge being there, my output can be increased, and finally they just need to be informed. So we can classify or identify the stakeholders into these 4 categories. It can be a group of 2-3 categories taken together. Okay, it can be individually, that is there can be certain people who just, like if I talk about the dormant partners, if I'm talking about partnering in the name of stakeholdership, so they just need to be kept informed about what is happening out in the business, and basis upon their share in the business, they can be shared with the profits or the losses, whatever is happening. But when I'm talking about impact, involvement and influence, there they need to be very much certain and be very much involved into the process. Then comes one term that is known as gatekeeper. Gatekeeper would be the POC. POC is the point of contact. Now everyone cannot contact with the stakeholder. There should be a single point of contact with the stakeholder who can coordinate. Like in every organization, when we talk about the human resources department, till the end of the stage, until and unless the recruitment happens, the HR is the only person who keeps an eye, who keeps contacting with the particular person. None of the other person can contact with the stakeholders. There can be many other people who can play a supporting role, but there should be a SPOC, that is the single point of contact. Now, who can be or identifying the possible stakeholders? So, basis the objectives, there can be classified into internal, external, suppliers, customers, and partners. When I talk about internal stakeholders, they can be division heads, the heads of the various divisions that are there in the organization, the support crews, the engineering groups, the business development people, and the executive. Now, how they can become the stakeholders? They can become the stakeholders basis their performance. Their performance is the indicator, and just to give them as a token of bonus or a token of gratitude towards the organization, they can be made the stakeholders, like generally happens in the IT firms. People are issued some shares, they become the members of the board of directors or the board of governance into the organization. Next, when we talk about the partners, they can be executive, commercial, and business development. Executives who are directly working into the organization, commercial, that can be a totally partnership for the business concerns only, and business development who are fully involved into the development of business. Suppliers, certain are operational, certain are commercial. Operational means they are on constant basis involved with the organization or with the project, and they are constantly supplying, so they can become the stakeholder. Wherein if I talk about commercial, they are enhancing the business activities, henceforth they can become the stakeholders. Talking about external parties include lobby groups, general public, and standards. Now, when I'm talking about external people, these people are very difficult to identify. Why? because they can be anyone from the general masses, anyone from amongst the people. It can be a lobby of people, that is a group of friends getting together who is influenced by a particular project idea, and they become the stakeholders or partners alongside with each other. General public, when I had already given an example about IPOs, when IPOs are floated, people who own the equity shares get the right into the board of directors, and they also can help out in taking up decision. And standards as in there are certain benchmarks or quality standards that have to be made. These standardization organizations also become a part or a stakeholder to an organization, because like if we talk about electronic equipments, they have to be, like if I talk about in India, they have to be comply with the ISO standardization norms. Like if I talk about gold, it has to be complying with the BSI standard or the hallmark standard. Okay, so there are various quality organization, or we will study in further times to come about total quality management or quality management, where there are various organizations that provide quality benchmarks alongside. So when they are also involved into the process, they are giving standardization marks of their unit, so they also do become the stakeholders. Last but not the least, when talking about the customers, they can be the users of the product. They can be certain set of people who are the most important customer for an organization, the requirement owners. That is, we are producing a product out of which certain products can be manufactured. So those people to whom I am supplying, they can become my stakeholders, that every time they purchase product from me, not from anyone else, executives, procurement people, or commercial purpose. Now, assess. Assess, again, you can see the commitment curve that we saw in the first slide. Now here you can see few more things. Visualize where the stakeholders are now and where we want them in future. So assessment ideally should complete in the first 2 months. There you can see, that is acceptance come where we need them in 3 weeks. Commitment should come in 5 weeks. So this is a stipulated kind of a timeline which you should idealize that for finalizing the stakeholders. If in case you are taking more time, means you don't have any sort of trust or faith onto your stakeholder, and you want to review your decision basically. All right. Okay. Now assessment involves various questions. For each and every stakeholders, we have 4 parameters. One is action, one is concern, one is requirement, and is change drivers. So these particular parameters, if a particular stakeholder meets along, then we can consider that particular person as a stakeholder. That is, the crux or the storyline behind all these many number of points is to build commitment and surface resistance in the required time scale or timeline. Okay, so these are the various questions which a particular stakeholder should fulfill in order to gain trust, in order to build their image, in order to develop their image into the outside world amongst the customer, so that the project can be influenced accordingly, and they should also comply with the commitment curve, that is the requirement of the commitment curve as well. Now this is a kind of a stakeholder map. Okay, this you must be facing some difficulty to understand. Okay, so here there you are able to see all the 5 categories: internal, external, customer, users. Okay, and these are the various roles where it is written E or D, it is economic buyer or decision maker. This is written in red color code. You can see that in this customer particular phase. Here it is E that is written. E is economic buyer. It is marked in red, means the degree of influence is high. Okay. Or when I talk about the rating is -4 to -5. Why? Because he is an antagonist or anti-sponsor. Also, no or minimal contact or improve significantly. So the color and the alphabet written into that particular aspect has to be taken into consideration. You can even click over here to understand what is the basic relationship out there that is mentioned. Okay, where you can see black dots, completely black dots, they have the level of contact that is being shown. Where there is a clean white dot, it is no contact at all. Where there is a quarter of a contact, it is a brief contact. When there is a half, it is multiple contact. And when there is a full black dot, it is in-depth contact. When I'm talking about the green portion of the rating, where the rating is from +3 to +5, we are talking about the most enthusiastic advocates of of a particular product. Say for example, if I am asked which toothpaste I would like to use, I will never say any other brand other than Colgate. And maybe I can influence anyone onto it by speaking a lot about it, because I have over a period of time framed an opinion about it. Say for example, I am buying a television or a washing machine or an AC or a refrigerator. I have a particular restriction or a particular brand consciousness onto these particular products. There are certain set of products for which I'm not brand conscious, which I can buy from anywhere. Just what I need to see is the quality of that particular product, maybe from whatever shop I am buying. But when I'm buying these kind of heavy products or such important products which I want to them to work and which I am taking it myself, I can become an advocate to that particular product. Okay, then the ones marked in blue and dark yellow, that is -1 to +2 or -2 to -3, these are target for buying influences. Like there is one who is speaking a lot about the product. That person can also be harmful for an organization to some extent. But these mediocre people, medium category of people, they are the major influences. Okay, so I want you to study this particular diagram in particular very keenly and observe how each category of stakeholder is playing an important role. There is the name of the particular person also that is written. If I go with internal, we are writing the name first as project manager, second one is the technical authority, third one is the system architect. When I'm talking about users, I'm talking about users based upon the functions. Then we have subcontractors, we have prime users, we have customer of the projects. Okay, so just go through this particular map. Now, this is the particular format which is used for stakeholder analysis or stakeholder plan, how to plan. It includes buying influence, the name of the project or the stakeholder, the title of the project, the location of the project, the role. What is the role of that particular stakeholder into my organization? That you can get it from here, from this particular map. Role is marked as an economic buyer or decision maker, or the user, or the technical buyer, or the coach, or interested person. Okay, then you have degree of influence. What is the degree of influence that person is having? Then the mode. Mode as in he's a gatekeeper, or he is the stakeholder, or he is the advocate, or he is the buyer influencer, etc. Then who is the single point of contact for this person, and who are the stakeholder influencers. Then next is key wins and results, benefits and disadvantages. Now uh, after the entry of these stakeholders, we need to also analyze what change they have made. That is to be done. Then you have to give or provide up a rating from -5 to +5, and how the business had been impacted. And last but not the least, the important one, in the commitment curve, where do they lie? Now, in planning phase only, we have level of control. Now, level of control can be classified into two parts: the firm's control and the light touch. Firm controls means there is a greater amount of control that is there. So the process goes in as contact or communicate with the stakeholder, where not the gatekeeper. Ask the gatekeeper first. If the gatekeeper is not there, you need to first inform the gatekeeper via any of the channel, and then once the gatekeeper has permitted, you need to process it further. Then gatekeeper authorizes and provides the current status of the relationship from their information and stakeholder management plan, as we have seen before, that onto the graph or onto the commitment plan, where do the stakeholder lies, and thereafter contact the stakeholder for documentation or any other significant outcome. And this particular outcome or this particular communication should be duly communicated to the gatekeeper. Why to the gatekeeper? Because this gatekeeper is the single point of contact for this particular stakeholder. Wherein, when I talk about light touch, these stakeholders do not require a tight control. Whatever we were doing in the previous case, there would be a lesser thing over here. So if there is not a gatekeeper, we refer to the stakeholder plan. I'm not going to directly call to the gatekeeper that please tell me what is the status of the gatekeeper. There is a stakeholder plan, and we will refer to that and know the status of the stakeholder plan. Optionally, we can ask the gatekeeper to view the stakeholder relationship, but this is optional. This is not mandatory. I can myself also check the status, because this is kind of a thing which is known to the organization. And then contact the stakeholder and inform the gatekeeper about the significant changes that have happened from the particular meeting that has taken place. So, got the difference between the two? There we have, at every level, the gatekeeper has to be there, has to be informed about each and every thing that is taking place. If there is the slightest movement also there, that has to be told to the gatekeeper. Wherein in the light touch case, okay, I have the processes with me, maybe the gatekeeper is not there at a given point of time, I can lead the things ahead. So this is the light touch. Now, the gatekeepers are those who lead the stakeholder engagements. Okay, they basically coordinate with them, they control them, maybe they can get the things done through them. But if the gatekeeper is not working for the favor or for the interest of the organization, then that particular thing can be a problem. So there is definitely a risk involved in it. Maybe a stakeholder can also have certain sort of serious issues with the gatekeeper. This can be the disadvantages of having a gatekeeper in between. but the communication becomes clear, the communication becomes single-handedly taken over. It would be clear, the messages would be agreed upon. Now these are a few examples of flagging the stakeholders. There are issues or concerns present for which no resolution is currently identified. So for this, there can be that the stakeholder has refused to sign off the material. Stakeholder has the power to delay the project as it is deemed likely to do so, or the stakeholder is communicating negative messages about the project. So this can be one particular set of thing that is there. And why it is marked red? We are talking about flagging. Red means highly risked. Then comes the yellow thing, where there is a medium level of risk, where we are talking about stakeholders not at all they are required point of commitment curve, but unlikely to delay the process. They cannot delay the process. They can raise issues or concerns which are being managed, but they are unresolved to date, but they can be resolved. So there are certain set of issues that are going on in between. So this can be because of insufficient contact with the gatekeeper. And last, that is green. Stakeholder has seen and approved all relevant material for the stage of the project. All stakeholder issues are addressed to the satisfaction at this stage, and the stakeholders at required point of commitment curve for this stage. So this is the most win-win situation if a particular stakeholder is flagged as green. This is a win-win situation. When a particular stakeholder is flagged as yellow, it is a situation where there is some tussle that is going on between the stakeholder and the gatekeeper, or the stakeholder and the organization, and maybe it can be resolved, but it is not resolving due to those issues, or maybe there are certain delays, or there are certain contact or communication gaps that are there. But red is the most serious one. Now, how to validate and maintain? This is a whole cycle that goes on and on and on. And validation and maintenance, when we are talking about, is something that when we talk about control measures. How do we control things? We control things by checking it again and again and again and again and again, by the means of communication. Like when we are talking in terms of marketing or product or service delivery, we keep on checking whether my customer is satisfied or not. So here, when I'm talking about my stakeholder, whether my stakeholder is getting what is the desired communication, whether my stakeholder is getting what amount of influence or what amount of information that he or she desires of. There should not be any sort of an ambiguity into the things. The actions should speak along with the words. There should not be any sort of resistance based on the time scales. The commitment curves should be duly measured. And
voice is not clear.
Sorry, is it clear now?
Voice is not.
Is it happening with everyone?
Can hear you.
Hello?
No, the voice
From my
clear.
end,
I
it
can
is
hear you.
clear.
Yeah,
I
clear
can
Let
hear
him
you.
all
Donna.
get
It's
the
It's
clear.
also
login.
clear. Maybe it's just the one gentleman who's having an issue. Perhaps maybe like suggested
The
earlier, can you
internet.
just type it into the chat box to save on time so that the rest of us can move on, and then you can help him individually like that.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe
Sure.
check or maybe see the recording afterwards.
All right, all right. So we were talking about the validation and maintenance. So we need to validate the particular stakeholder based upon the commitment timeline, as well as maintain relationship. As we maintain relationship with our relatives, we need to maintain the relationship with the stakeholders, because they are the important entities for our organization, for our project. They are influencing our project. They are benefiting from our project. They are promoting our project. So we need to give adequate timelines to them also. And what precautions should be taken are: the stakeholder management plan content must comply with the data protection legislation. That is, legalities have to be maintained. Data protection legislation entitles individual access to information recorded about them. Only record facts, not assumptions or perceptions. So these are certain things that you should be cautious about, or any person should be cautious about while taking a decision about any of the stakeholders who are there into the organization. First is legality, data protection rights. Data should not be leaked or duplicated or replicated by any means, and the facts should be recorded in the terms of legalities. On the legal papers, those facts should be recorded. So this was what was a part of the stakeholders analysis. Okay, so now I invite you all for writing up some questions or queries into the chat box, or maybe if you want to speak, you can speak by raising your hand, and I will ask you to unmute yourself. Or try just to write or mention in the chat box so that I can just read out your question and answer it to you. Yes, Hennington is raising the hand.
Yes, thank you, Doctor.
Yeah, please tell me.
Okay, I wanted to ask, using the gatekeeper approach, don't you think it would be creating more like a single point of failure, something that can highly impact the project?
There are certain set of organizations where there are many stakeholders, and when there are multiple stakeholders, we need to have different single point of contacts to them, so that one particular person cannot influence other stakeholders in either of the positive or the negative ways. Like when I talk about when I'm taking class in my university over here in India, there are certain set of students who communicate everything to me. I am a single point of contact to them. But there is certain set of students who communicate things to others. So that is how influence works. That is how we can build up a confidence in that particular set of people. So similarly, stakeholders are people who need to be taken up with lots and lots of care, because in case they leave our organization, or in case they feel that they are not a part of that organization, they will anyways decline the contract of a stakeholder, and the word of mouth works a lot these days. So the word of mouth can also become negative. So gatekeeper is an important person, but if yes, we have few number or one or two stakeholders, that can be taken up on a lighter way. Okay, I have a question in the chat box. What is the chance of creating many more practical case studies to complement the theoretical concepts for us to relate with our workplaces? So, whenever you are working or wherever you are working, uh, there can be case studies then that can be developed, or as and when, because look, these all topics, like the topic which we did yesterday, that was the initiation phase, and it was just the startup of the plan review, and after plan review comes the stakeholder into the picture. These all there are 5 topics in your module 1. At the end of these 5 topics, I would be giving you live related case study that you can relate with the organization once you understand these 5 aspects that are involved in the initiation process. Okay, so theoretical concepts needs to be cleared out once. And I think this is from Kenneth. The question is coming. If you can tell me in what organization you are working with, so I can help you more about it.
Thank you very much. I work for an innovation hub, and I feel like maybe I was not at par with the introductory phase of the course, but I hope I will actually catch up with the rest of the colleagues. Yeah, but I work for an innovation hub where we work mostly with innovators and startups working in our facilities.
Okay, so when I'm talking about working with startups or certain organizations which are maybe small or medium sized organizations, they definitely need certain set of stakeholders who can bear out the responsibilities, because the fund requirement is much, and to make them understand that what that startup is all about, because startup is something which is a new idea in reality. As we see, there are lots, and every government is promoting startups these days so that the employability increases. So if there is some vested interest of the stakeholders out into there, stakeholder is not only the person who has some degree of interest or some sort of influence into the market, but also is a person who wants to cater to the society as well. So this ways you can definitely correlate it at your workplace. Yes, Keith. One thing you have written, that do you have any material for reference you can share? Definitely in a day or so I'll be uploading one PDF file regarding this particular module, which will cover all the aspects which we are studying in the class in detail, so that you can go through and understand the aspects. And alongside, I am uploading these PPTs and presentations, whatever through which I am making you the understand the things. Any other thing, Keith?
Yes, Doctor, thank you so much. Staying with the gatekeeper concept and also looking at the first slide we looked at, which starts with several lines from number 1 all the way up to intervention. Wouldn't it be possible then to have several gatekeepers to be able to manage the individual levels, let's say engagement, acceptance, commitment, so that you have each person responsible for a particular outcome? Because then I'm looking at it from a point of view where, for example, where the gatekeeper is the only individual, and let's not wish him ill, but let's say on the day he falls ill, and what happens to the rest of the process, you know?
Every time, that is at every stage when we are talking about these people, yes, they, as I said, that control needs to be there at every given point of time. So at every stage we do have executives who are working alongside these gatekeepers. And as I said for the previous problem also, that there, for a bigger organization, for a larger size of organization, where we have many stakeholders, to manage them we need to have multiple gatekeepers, so that a single person is not under the burden of many stakeholders, as well as listening to the choices and preferences of multiple stakeholders. Okay, next I have a question from Ellis, that you mentioned that words of mouth can be negative or positive during stakeholder analysis. What control measure can you put in place to ensure that word of mouth reflect positively to your business during stakeholder analysis? So when I'm talking about positive or negative, positive is anyways good, but negative is when my stakeholder is unhappy, when a particular stakeholder is suggesting me something, suggesting a particular change, suggesting about a particular kind of innovation, or any kind of involvement into the practices, and I am not at all I am actually ignoring that particular suggestion, then in that case, the stakeholder might have a negative word of mouth. Say, for example, in this particular class, if I give importance to a few and neglect a few, so what will happen? People will definitely say that, no, this is a kind of a biased class where only few people are being given a chance to speak and few people are only being given a chance to put forth their words, or they are better being understood. And if I give equal opportunity to all, then there would be some positive feedback can also be there, that yes, we have equal opportunity and our problem is being sorted out. Similar thing happens in the organization, that if my suggestions are being valued, then I will value the organization. If my suggestions are not being valued, or any insight is not only developed for my suggestions, then what is the utility of that suggestion, or what is the utility of me being there? Okay, then we have next question. How do we set and manage expectations of stakeholders before, during, and after the implementation of the project? Now, as I know what my objective is, and where once I have finalized my objective, I also know that what my consumer expects out of me, with what intention that particular person will buy that product from me, with what objective that particular person would come to me. Similarly, a stakeholder, as we saw, there was one section that was related to internal, but the other sections were all outsiders. So in order to influence them, we need to practice upon certain set of changes in the organizational hierarchy and manage those expectations accordingly. Expectations are not always monetarily. Expectations can be defined in terms of giving respect, giving due diligence, and implementing the due suggestions given by them all into the better interest of the organization. Another question is, in case the co-founders as stakeholder decide to quit or appear to be not engaged in the project process, what could be done by the implementer? Okay, if a person shows less of interest into the processes of the organization, but he is still there with the organization, so we can take him or her to be as a person who just need to be informed. As I mentioned into the slide, that there can be three category of stakeholders which have due influence, which do work within the organization, but there is one category of person who is just the person who just wants to be informed. So we will just pass on the information, and with that information, if he or she is having some sort of objection or any kind of issue, that ways that person can communicate, else not. Then the next Moses says, so is it safe to say that stakeholder management is key from inception to the close of the project? Yes, we can say this. Okay, so any more questions, or is there any question that is written in the chat and I have missed it? No. Okay, so I have one new message. All right, I think it's almost the time, and still if there are any questions that are pending, we can solve it in the next session that would be scheduled for tomorrow. And okay, a question popped up again. How exactly do you meet the stakeholders' expectation while not going out of your means? Anyways, I need not go out of my means. What is my objective? That has to be go in lines. As you can see, I assess my stakeholder, that whether that person meets with my criteria or not. That should be the matching point first. Post that only I will finalize the stakeholder to be with my organization. Stakeholders objective to come to my organization, to be into my organization, has to be with the purpose, where the purpose matches in alignment with my objective, because that organization where I am associating the stakeholder is mine. So objective fulfillment will remain as it is. Stakeholders mindset has to be in synchronization with that particular objectives. I will not change my objective until and unless I am able to see that yes, there is some strong suggestion that is coming, and that is while we are understanding the market as well. Yes, any other? How is stakeholder management related to partnership management? Okay. So when I talk about partnership, partnership is a mutual agreement between two or more than two people who agree to get associated with each other and share the profits or losses of the concern. Whereas stakeholder, there are a set of terms and conditions that have to be met out, as we studied in, or as we saw in the map also, and there has to be some sort of result or output that has to be met. It is not exactly like stakeholder management is not exactly like sharing up of profits it or losses. It is more about how best they are able to generate the profit for the interest of the organization, and how best they are working or giving the output for the organization. So this is the difference between the two. Partnership is all about when we talk about profits or losses that has to be shared, maybe equally or maybe the in the proportion of the capital that is invested into the business. Yes, any other thing? So, all right then, I will call it off for the day. Thank you very much. So I'm just ending up the meeting right here, and this particular presentation would be duly shared with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dog.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Doctor.